What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be doing one of my absolute faves, monthly wrap up. So today we're going to talk about the August wrap up. Can we believe, first and foremost, that it's already August? No, I'm sorry. It is already September of 2024. I feel like this year has just been a blur and it's just gone by so fast. Recapping, there's just been so many amazing books that have been read this year. And then, of course, on top of that, just amazing trips that I've had the opportunity to go to. To be exact, so far we have read 109 books. So honestly, doing pretty good. The goal for this year was 100 books. I'm actually really proud that we've already hit that goal. And that being said, and by we, I mean but I also feel like it's a we, because I feel like it's a team effort, because we're a community here. You know what I'm saying? But that being said, I just thought it would be fun to film our August reading wrap up on this lovely September 3rd. So that being said, one of these books I did finish technically beginning of September. Like, I finished it on September 1st on Goodreads. It's listed as September 2nd because I forgot to log it yesterday that I had finished it. But at the same time, I'm like, I started it in August, finished it by the 1st of September, so we're still going to include it in the August group of books. I was pretty true to my TBR. This month, there was one book on the TBR that I did not get to finish. I am currently reading it, but I feel like I'm too early into the story to be able to claim that it would be an August read. I started it probably on the 30th of August, and I have yet to finish it, and that book is Ruthless Vows. I did end up finishing Divine Rivals, but I could not get through Ruthless Vows, so I'm hoping that'll be the first book that I finish for this upcoming September reading month. Now, that being said, we're also coming into the cozy fall vibe, so you'll definitely see that in the next video when I put up the TBR for September. Some other fun videos that may be coming up soon include, but are not limited to, favorite 10 of the 100 books that I've read so far this year, physical TBR, because I don't know how excited you guys might be about this, but I'm hoping you guys are equally excited. But for me, I realize I have so many books at this point, and so many are physical TBR books, that I really need to just go through them and figure out what I have. And I really want to try and challenge myself to not really buy any new books unless they're already pre-ordered on my wish list. For example, the new Carrie Maniscalco book that's coming out. I will 100% be getting my hands on that book because that book has been on my wish list since January, so those type of books, it's fine. I have a couple of other pre-orders, for example, the new TJ Klune book that's coming out, which is the sequel to House in the Cerulean Sea. But for the most part, I'm really going to try to limit the number of books that I'm buying. I do have multiple special order books that I placed orders for very early on, so those unboxings will follow, but I don't plan on buying any more throughout the course of the year. Fingers crossed. We'll see how this goes. Outside of that, I also was thinking about potentially doing a planner recording. I do like to decorate my planner. I use Erin Condren. I don't know if other people are also pen and paper girlies like me, but I am definitely a pen and paper girl or gentleman. For me personally, there's just something cathartic about writing everything down and having logs of everything I read. I do a little bookshelf every month, and then I just love the beautiful stickers that you can get and the deco that you can do. I think I showcased these on some of my other videos as well, but I'm just thinking that I'm going to film a start to finish of an actual monthly planning video, the way that I decorate and how I organize all my planning. And then outside of that, I am also thinking that I might have a video that is specifically dedicated to the unread book of the month books that I have that may still be on their website, as well as my favorites that I have read, all grouped into one video with the books that are still available on their website, because we all know how much I love book of the month. This was actually recommended to me by a very good friend of mine who is part of my book club. So Jackie, if you're watching, thank you for that recommendation. I think that video would be a lot of fun. But that being said, that's basically the catch-ups in terms of upcoming video ideas for September. We'll see what actually rolls out, if you know what I'm saying. But without further ado, let's get into the video. Actually, I'm so sorry. Before we jump into the video, I just wanted to say, Welcome to the channel. If anyone is new, thank you so much for joining me. My name is Jaya, and over here on J-Bay's Corner of the Internet, we talk everything books and bookish vibes with a little sprinkle of maybe some luxury, some travel, those types of things, but primarily book galore. And for those of you who are returning, thank you so much for joining me again. It's always been a dream of mine to be able to share my passion for books with other people, and I think this has been a wonderful platform to be able to do that. If there's any books that you guys do want me to read, you do want me to review, definitely put it in the comments. I'm also thinking I might tackle some sci-fi trope books soon. I might tackle some other options as well. I know, right? Miraculous. Hence the fireworks. Because quite honestly, your girl would not have done it normally. But I have a couple of books that I have picked up that I really do want to read. A couple of them are Andy Weir books, etc. So we'll see how that goes. But now, finally, without further ado, let's get into the books read. So altogether this month, we have read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 books, I believe. The 14th book was started, like I mentioned, but unfortunately could not be completed. And then Ruthless Vows is unfortunately still on the back burner. And then there was one audiobook that I finished as well, which was Crimes Against a Book Club, which was absolutely excellent, which rounds us out for 14 total read this month. So I would say that was a pretty exciting win. Let me start with the pure Audible book first. Just so everyone knows, the way that I like to consume books is both in physical copy as well as in Audible. I really find that when I'm working, I am mobile physician, and so when I'm going home to home and I have that drive time, it's really cathartic for me to be able to just listen to a good book and plug into that. It's really nice, especially sitting in the heat and in traffic. And then outside of that, I have really enjoyed being able to get my Audible time in while I'm working out or at the gym. Between you and me, another life goal of mine for this year is that hopefully by around March, April of next month, I do want to lose a solid 30 pounds. That's what we're working on. I have packed on a lot of happily newlywed marriage weight, if you will. But now that we're hitting our 2-year anniversary soon in November, I am like, this is getting ridiculous. So we're trying to get back into that healthy routine. So that's a journey as well. But that's also where I've been listening to a lot of my Audible. And then outside of that, I do also have my physical books as well. So let's talk a little bit about Crimes Against a Book Club, because it was honestly hilarious and so cute. This book, this is what the book looks like. I'm sorry for the glare, guys. Let me see if I can show that a little bit better without the glare. So this book is by Kathy Cooperman, and it was hilarious. So basically the concept is there's these two best friends. One is had unsuccessful IVF treatments. She's just trying to get pregnant. She's a very, very successful lawyer. She's an elder pregnancy, like an older pregnancy, meaning like she's in her late 30s and she's still trying to have a kid. The other main character is a mom of 3 children who has to basically quit her job to stay at home with her son because he has just been diagnosed with a condition that requires a lot of time from a parent. And so she's the one who decides to stay at home with him. In the midst of all this, they're just realizing like they have so much expenses coming up between keeping up with her son's care as well as in the other woman's case keeping up with the IVF treatments, and they're just trying to be successful mothers. So they decide that they are going to sell a face cream, and they are only going to sell it to rich women, and they are going to collect money from these rich women for this cream that they are selling, basically saying that that youthful glow will continue to stay with them. Lo and behold, there's some secret ingredients that are added to this cream, and it becomes a newscasted situation. And so I thought it was an absolutely hilarious novel. It has some really interesting family dynamics, some friendship vibes. It really talks about different dichotomies of socioeconomic women and how they feel about being in a world of wealth, and talks about power plays, all kinds of things, but overall really talking about empowering women. I thought it was a great book. I did actually really enjoy this book. I ended up rating it a 4-star. I didn't think it was quite a 5-star read for me, but it was entertaining enough and memorable enough to me that I did end up wanting to talk about it with a couple of my friends for a few days after I read the book, and it really sat with me because it was just an entertaining book. So that was enough for me to give it a 4 star. So I was excited about that. Next up, I have the Twisted series. Now, let me just say, we actually got really lucky this month in seeing that there were a few 5-star reads throughout the course of this month. And I was super stoked about that because I feel like finding a true 5-star read is hard. I give a lot of books 3s. I give a lot of book 4s. It's very hard for me to put a 2 or below on a book because I do think I just respect the process that goes into writing. And I think every author has a story to tell. And I really tend to enjoy most stories that I read. But there's very rarely a book where I'm just like, this is a true 5-star read for me. Like this left me speechless, or it pulled out emotions for me. And so I wanted to say that Twisted Love by Anna Huang was a 5-star read for me. This book was amazing. I honestly did not expect to see a 5-star in this genre. It is romance, but it's also, I don't know how to describe it. It's not like dark romance or anything, but it's definitely Grumpy Sunshine. It's definitely like forbidden love. Like it's definitely on the spicier side. There is a lot of spice in this book. I would give this a solid, like out of the chilies of 1 to 5, I would give this a solid 3 chilies. But it does have some very open door sexual scenes, if you will. So if that's not your vibe, then definitely consider skipping those scenes if you are going to read this book, or maybe just don't pick it up. But that being said, I think what I loved about this book is the character development and then the intrinsic stories for each individual character outside of the romance itself. Basically, the main female in this character, Ava, she has had a very unique relationship with her family, and it kind of delves into that, and we have a little mystery aspect to her childhood because she struggles with sleeping through the night, and she has a fear of water and like all this other stuff. And you know, she had a traumatic event in her childhood where she thought she was being drowned by her mother. There's all kinds of crazy things that happen. And I think as the story progresses, it was really beautiful to see how Anna Huang pulled mystery out of that event that happened in her life and also tied it to the other main character, who is Alex Volkov. Now, Alex Volkov is a billionaire. He's doing very well for himself. He's like 28 years old. He's best friends with Ava Chang's older brother, Josh Chang. And so basically, he is like Ava's off limits, right? But Josh is about to leave and is very protective of his younger sister and basically asks Alex to take care of her. And that's how these two characters end up in the same orbit. That being said, he is not the type for relationships. He is very like serious, very intense. Like he's out for cold-blooded revenge because his family was murdered in cold blood in front of him. And now he has to find who did this to his family. And he has a revenge scheme in mind. And it's like following these plot lines that are very, very fascinating and very interesting. That's as much as I want to say without giving away too much. I feel like that was a lot of plot right there, but at least it's still not so much that you can't read the book and enjoy the twists and turns that happen. But it's very, very, very well written, and it was fun. And I think the banter between the two characters and the romance between the two characters was also very easy for me to fall into line with. I really cared about both of these characters. I really enjoyed their stories. I liked a lot of the side characters in this book as well. And so this was definitely a 5-star read for me. Now, I absolutely, absolutely adored this book. Would definitely recommend to everyone. Just be cautious of that spice level. Now, this book also happens to be about 4 girls who are best friends. Each of the following books in the series follows one of those 4 friends. So Twisted Games is then the next book in the series. This is following Bridget, who is one of the other best friends of that group of 4 girls with Ava Chen. She is also royalty. This gave me a lot of Princess Diaries vibes, the Royal Engagement, like that movie vibe, but like slightly more twisted, slightly darker. It essentially casts our female lead in a situation where she has to choose between duty and love. I think it was a very well-written book. Essentially, she ends up falling in love with her bodyguard. And so that's the storyline we're following here. This book, I don't want to give much more than that because I do think it's important to the plot line that you actually read the book. There's a lot of political intrigue going on within the court and her having to navigate that. She's going to be the first female monarch in years. There's a lot of rules and regulations around policies about monarchs who are unwed, especially females taking over. So all of that kind of stuff going on here. And then outside of that, obviously, she has the family members that are driving her insane as well, who might be having power plays towards her throne, like all that good stuff. Very, very, very Princess Diaries vibe for me. I think this book was adorable. I think it was very, very cute. I just don't think it had the same bite or the same capture that Twisted Love had for me. So I wouldn't say that this is not a great book. I ended up giving this about a 4.25 stars. I don't think it's quite a 5-star read for me, but I did literally love Bridget. I do really love Reese, who are the main characters in this book. And I love the new side characters that are also introduced through this book, which I was very excited to read their stories as well. So I do think this is a fun read. I would recommend for anyone who's interested in continuing the series. I just don't think it had the same level of nail-biting, jaw-dropping intensity that the first book had, and it didn't move at that same speed for me. To give you an idea, I finished Twisted Love in a day. One day. This book took me about 3, you know? So it just didn't have that same grab or that same bite for me to want to sit down and read it. That being said, still a solid 4.25, so would recommend. Then we had Twisted Hate. Now this was a 4.85 stars for me. Now the reason why the 0.15 stars were lost is because there is a scene where the male lead says something to the female lead in this book where I wanted to punch him in the face. And the way with which she forgave him, the simplicity with which she forgave him, is not something I can get behind. I just don't think it was cool what he did, and I don't think it was appropriate. And I have a problem with the ease in which she forgave him, or how the author wrote her to forgive him. And so, yeah. It's just like blood boiling. I can't explain it. Like, I don't want to say what he says because it really ticked me off. But I think the way he handled that situation, the way he does what he does in that scene was extremely frustrating. But I did love this book. This book is following Jules and Josh Chen. So it's basically following the older brother of Ava Chen from the first book and Jules, who is Ava Chen's best friend. Now, Jules Ambrose has been very, what is the right word? Typecasted by a lot of people in her life. They think she's just the ditzy girl who's super hot and basically is only out to party and have fun and constantly getting into trouble. They don't really give her credit for her brains. Enter Josh Chen. She and him have a very love-hate relationship. It's definitely an enemies to lover trope, but there's a lot of sexual chemistry there. There's also the fact that the two of them love Ava to death, and they both think that the other person doesn't let Ava live her life. And so I do love that loyalty that's shown in this book. The underlying secondary story to this book is that Jules is being blackmailed by a person from her past, which drives her to do certain things in this book, which then causes the issues between her and Josh as the book progresses. Again, very, very spicy book. I would say this was even more spicy than the first one. Like, I would give this one a solid 4 chili, I think, for me. Is it as bad? Actually, maybe not. Maybe it's like a 3.75 chili, because is it as bad as like, I don't know, Butcher and Blackbird and Lark and Leather? No, it's not quite that bad, but I do think like some of the scenes are very aggressive. It is rougher sex, if that makes any sense. That being said, I love Jules. I love her character. I absolutely adored her in all the other books. I love her energy. I love the vibe she brings to the group. I love her loyalty. I also love her ridiculousness. So I really was looking forward to this book. I think that scene at the end of the book just kind of killed it for me, because the idea of someone treating her that way really made me angry. But outside of that, I think the book was very well done. And so I would say that it's definitely worth reading. This is probably my next favorite in the group of 4. So I would definitely recommend this. Also, if you guys were interested in further seeing details on these books from me, definitely go check out the other video that I had posted just going over this series. The ratings since that video has changed because I've had more time to ruminate on all of these books. But yeah, I would give this about a 4.85 stars. Then we have Twisted Lies. Now, Twisted Lies by Anna Huang is the 4th book following Stella as the main character. She's the 4th of the 4 best friends. She's a social media influencer. Automatically not a fan of her. Like, she's not that deep of a character, I guess, for me. Like, I couldn't connect with her, and so that really made it hard for me to sympathize with things that were happening to her. She basically has a stalker in this book, and that leads to her requiring the assistance of Christian Harper, who is the main guy in this book, who also is in security. And so he basically fell in love with her the moment he set eyes on her. He has been interested in her ever since, and there is an opportunity for him to be there for her and get to know her better, and so obviously he's going to seize it. This one wasn't as spicy. It's still spicy, but not as spicy as Twisted Hate, I would say, or Twisted Love. I would give this like maybe a 3 spice level. The spice scenes in this book are definitely very skippable, so you don't have to read those scenes if you're not interested, if you're more of a closed door type of girl or guy reader. That being said, I think this was a solid 3 stars for me. I didn't love this book. I didn't think it was phenomenal, but I also don't think it was like bad. I still enjoyed reading it. I had fun reading it, but I didn't find it super memorable or anything that I would stick by. It was more like I read this book because it was part of the rest of the series. That being said, while I didn't care for Stella's character in this book, I love Christian. I think part of the reason that it also bothered me is I thought Christian deserved more and better. And I think the reason why they end up fighting at the end was very ridiculous. Like, I just find Stella very immature, which was a problem for me because all the other 3 girls are more mature, in my humble opinion, than she was. She's the quiet one. She's the late, like, she's like very ambitious, very quiet, but she doesn't like really know how to get what she wants to get. And he kind of helps open her up in that way, which is nice and everything, but just, I didn't feel her character. You know what I mean? So like 3 star for me. But would I say the overall series is a wonderful read? Yes, I would say average for the entire series put together is probably like a 4.25. And like I said, 1 5-star read in there. So definitely would recommend this series if you're into romance that has like that slightly edgier vibe. I don't think it's like a Haunting Adelaide vibe at all. Like, it's not like that level or like any kind of like do me dirty or like super spicy books or anything like that. Like, it's very, very entertaining, easy, fun paced reads. But it does have spice, just to be aware of, and it is probably along the lines of a slightly more intense romance novel with like other components to the book going on as well. The next set of books that I want to talk about, now these were all purely physical reads. The Twisted series, I did do a combination of Audible and physically reading those books. These 3 books were purely physical reads, so I did not do Audible for these at all, so they did take me a little bit longer to finish. This is the Dreamland Billionaire series by Lauren Asher. It was my first time reading her. I did actually thoroughly enjoy myself, and I'm looking forward to reading the Throttled series as well as the Lakeland Billionaire series by her. The Fine Print is basically following the youngest brother of 3 and his romance story. He is a billionaire who his grandfather has basically put conditions on him inheriting his money in order to help him reach his potential and also open himself back up emotionally. All 3 boys were very, very close to their grandfather but had terrible relationships with their father, with the exception of the second brother, who did have a fallout with his grandfather at one point in time. All 3 brothers are very, very locked within themselves, don't really express themselves emotionally, are very, very challenged when it comes to trusting other people. But at the same time, they're decent guys. The women in these books are definitely more sunshiny. They're definitely the more happier of the 3 of the characters in the duo, and it's basically grumpy sunshine tropes all the way around. The Fine Print, I think, was enjoyable. I did actually do a video specifically on my thoughts and reactions to these Lauren Asher books, so if you want to check that out, you can. I basically did a series review on them. This one I felt like was like closer to in between a 3 and 4 star for me. It wasn't quite a 5-star read. It was entertaining. It was enjoyable. It did want me to keep reading the rest of the books. So there was that, but I wouldn't say like it was like the most wonderful book I've ever read or anything like that, but I did enjoy it. So like I said, solid 3-star read for me, a little bit, probably closer to 3 stars, honestly, but fun enough, enjoyable enough where I was like intrigued by the concept. To hear more details, definitely check out that other video, but it was a fun read. The next book in the series is Terms and Conditions. This one I loved. This one follows the eldest brother. I think the eldest brother has the biggest chip on his shoulder. He also has the most riding on him, and he has a lot of direct antagonistic relationship with his father, like consistently all the time. He's also the least trusting of the three. He also took it upon himself to take the beatings from his alcoholic brother whenever he could to protect his younger siblings. So very, very protective, very, very loyal, doesn't trust easily. He's in a position where basically his grandfather's terms for him to inherit his CEO position was to essentially say, you need to get married and you need to have a kid in order for you to be able to inherit your shares. So he is, he doesn't know who he can trust. Enter Iris, his secretary, the one woman that he actually respects and works very closely with, has always had a slight attraction to, but has never really pursued it. She is basically tasked with the job of finding him a wife, and essentially he expects her to have this contract drawn up, and of course the bride that she finds is like perfect on paper, and then his dad scares her away. And so now Iris is like, what the hell am I going to do? And so she blurs the line between loyalty for her boss and her job and her situationship, and basically says that I will take that position and get married to you. And it basically follows Declan's and Iris's story. I loved this book. I think Iris is a phenomenal character. I think she is such a strong female lead. I think her family dynamic with her mom and her grandmother is beautiful to read. I think she is one of the strongest characters I've read, especially since she is battling her dyslexia and other things that are going on in her life and has come so far in her career. And in the midst of all this, like, Declan is not aware of certain things about Iris, or it hasn't been spoken out loud. So seeing them communicate, seeing them create a relationship, seeing them create that love and that trust for each other was very fun to read. And I like the fact that there was already a baseline friendship. So that really meant something to me because of the fact that it was easier for me to get into the romance, easier for me to appreciate why the two characters had chemistry, why they fell in love. I would say this was a 4-star read for me, probably even a 4.5-star read for me. It wasn't quite a 5-star, but it was definitely one of those books that I would go back and potentially even glance at again, read again, recommend to other people. So I would definitely recommend reading this one. The next book in the trilogy is Final Offer. Now, all these books are also standalone. The only thing is that all the characters are obviously intertwined throughout the book. So reading the first one does make it easier for you to follow the characters in the next book, specifically the relationship between the siblings. Also, if you don't read them in order, you already know what brother is going to end up with whom and what's going on in their lives a little bit early. So I would recommend reading them in order, but they are technically standalone books. Final Offer is basically following the last brother, Cal, and he is a childhood lover second chance romance novel. He's also struggling with his alcoholism and his history of drug abuse. He is also trying to find his sense of purpose. He doesn't know where he really fits in. Very strong middle child vibes from Cal. And his grandfather basically says in order for him to inherit his shares towards the company and help his brothers maintain their seats on the company board chairs as well, that he needs to go back, confront his past, meet his old childhood lover, and basically sell their old home, which also happens to be owned by her, and she's living there with her kid. So it's a very interesting dynamic. I think this was supposed to give like Gilmore Girl vibes, I think, like small town vibes. I just couldn't really get into the main female lead. Like, I felt more for Cal. I just didn't really care for Alana, his love interest. I think she's very like strong. I think she's very, very like great to read as like her current present time character. But the fact that the town basically turns against him because he ended up like breaking off the relationship when they were 16 or something like that, like that I didn't care for. I think the loyalty the town has towards her was a little aggressively unwarranted, in my opinion. Like, I think you can totally love her and you can totally support her, but didn't need to be that ugly. And then I think in her case, like, she's just very distrusting. She's like a very prickly pear kind of character, and I get it because he hurt her when they were kids, so I guess we had to see them go through that. But like, I guess what I was looking for with a childhood romance story was similar to Love in Other Words, like by Christina Loren. That's one of my favorite books of all time, like strong 5-star read for me, and this didn't give me that vibe. That being said, I also feel like Cal's recovery was sped through. Like, you spend a lot of time hearing about his challenges his need to, you know, turn to his addictions in order to deal with his pain and his stressors and his anxiety and all these things. And then all of a sudden he's like, I'm going to go to rehab and I'm going to fix myself. You know what I mean? Which, I mean, that's great. I'm glad that he had that light bulb switch off for him, and I'm glad that he found his peace, and I'm glad that he found his support system and his family. I just felt like that could have been fleshed out a little bit better, especially that moment when he has that realization. But overall, I think it was a fun, easy read. For me, this was also a 3-star read. This is closer to a solid 3-star read compared to The Fine Print, which is probably closer to like a 3.5, 3.75. You know, this was a solid 3-star read for me. But I do think overall the series was a fun, easy read. Do I see myself reading Lauren Ash in the future? Absolutely. Next up, we had our next 5-star read, which is The Secret History. This is the book that we read for our book club. This is a dark academia novel, one of the earliest in its genres, written by Donna Tartt. Now, this book makes you feel things you didn't think you could. Like the cast of characters, the way that they're written, the sociopathic behavior of some of the characters, the victim mentality, the lack of guidance, the situations that they're put into, the complete devolvement of the characters as they turn more and more towards that base animalistic self as they're just trying to deal with their guilt. It's so beautifully written, like I can't put it into words how much I love this book. And by love this book, I mean I loved this book and hated this book at the same time. There were so many characters that I just wanted to slap. There's so many characters that I just wanted to really sit down and have a talking to. There's so many characters where I was like, why would you do that? But at the same time, the amount of emotion that this book elicited out of me, like I haven't had a book I've read like that in a very long time. In fact, I would even go so far as to say that this might even be a 5.5 stars on a scale of just 5. You know what I mean? Like it was incredible. Now, I really do enjoy dark academia, but I think when it comes to human psychology, that's what I really like. So psychothrillers, you know, and dark academia really tap into that concept. It's also why I really enjoyed reading Edgar Allan Poe and, you know, books like Crime and Punishment when I was in high school, because I felt like they really tapped into human psychology. Same thing with books like, you know, Great Expectations with Haversham's character and things like that. Like, I mean, there's so many great literature pieces out there that really delve into the human psyche, specifically the darker side of human psyche as well, and how easy it is to unravel. I think I am not the type to be in that environment. My husband likes to describe me as sunshiny Care Bears, rainbows, and jelly beans all the time. But you know, we all have those moments when we just want to like sit down and cry, or we're just like really overwhelmed with life, or there are situations where you're just like, you wish you could do something, but you can't because of societal norms and because of your value systems. Well, what happens if those value systems break down? What if your value systems are completely different? And that's what I love about these type of books, is they really dig into those concepts. And I think this book does a tremendous job of delving into those things. I don't want to give too much away because I just think everyone needs to read this book. I will say the print is very small. Okay, like it's a hefty book. This girl is, how big are you? 559 pages. Like it's a longer book. It does take time to really sit down and absorb it. I feel like if you really want to get the full bang for your buck out of this book, this one took me a solid 2 weeks to finish. It's probably the longest I've taken to finish any of the books in my pile of books right now. But it was such a phenomenal read. I can see why this is like a borderline classic, especially for the dark academia realm. But I think everyone should read this book. This was chef's kiss, phenomenal writing. And I've heard that Donna Tartt's writing is like that. So I do plan on eventually reading The Goldfinch as well. I do really want to get that book and take my time with it as well. I just don't know when I'm going to read it. I'm thinking actually it might be a good September vibe for me, potentially October, but that is definitely going to be in my near horizon because a lot of people have said that if you love this, you'll love that as well. I don't think you should go into this book thinking you're going to walk out feeling happy, that you're going to walk out feeling light and fluffy and happy. No, this is not one of those books. This is true dark academia, but I do think it's just written beautifully. And if you want to just delve into those minds of these young children and these like sociopathic characters and narcissistic characters and victim mentality characters, like such beautiful writing, guys, such beautiful writing. Okay, I'm gonna get off my soapbox now, but that's Donna Tartt, The Secret History. That book took the cake for me. Of course, after reading that, I was like, I need something a little bit lighter, something a little bit more fun. So I decided to pick up Yellowface. Now, Yellowface is hilarious in my personal opinion. I think it was so well written. Also a wonderful, wonderful book. Also another 5-star read for me. I think this book makes you think. It makes you think about society. It makes you think about the value of, intrinsic thoughts that an individual has. It makes you question, like, what is it about a piece of art or a concept that makes it a personal piece of property versus someone else repurposing it as their own. It has a character that is morally gray. So you are not cheering for her, you kind of hate her, but you also understand her. It's a very, very well-written book about our need to be accepted by society, our desire to be considered a success within our fields. This book is basically following a white woman whose friend, who is an Asian writer who went to school at the same time as her. They are both literary writers. They are both trying to get their books published. She is struggling. She has not had any of her books really published. She hasn't really had anyone show interest in her writing. Meanwhile, her Asian friend has been critically acclaimed. Like, she is loved by people. She is literally walked out the bat with a 6-figure, pay for her first book on Advance. She has written books that have been considered for film adaptations. They're taught in schools. Like, everyone knows who her friend is. And then her friend dies. So now she's at her friend's house. Her friend chokes and basically ends up dying. And her unfinished manuscript is right there. This woman, Juniper, then decides to take this book that has not been published under her dead friend's name, and basically makes it her own. So her friend's name is Athena and her name is Juniper, and so Juniper has basically stolen Athena's manuscript and basically corrects it, edits it, and then puts it out as her own. Now, the only thing is, this book is also following the story of Chinese immigrants, and so the question of identity then comes into play. Then we have a lot of people who start noticing discrepancies between like what she's saying and what's been written, and a lot of people start questioning, is it really her book or is it Athena's? And then, fast forward, she could have just done well on that, and now she has an opportunity to take another book that Athena was working on that was really just scribbles, but that first chapter, that first concept is there. She repurposes it at her own and writes that book as well. So it's a very interesting storyline. It's a twisted lead character, like I said, morally gray character, but it's a very, very interesting read for sure. I do think that this book is one of those books that, again, will just make you question, society, and it's such a well-written book. I would definitely recommend this book to readers as well. Then we had Party Girls Die in Pearls. This was the book that we read for the other book club that I'm a part of, Paper and Glam. This book, I think, was highly entertaining. Basically, it is a dark academia adjacent book as well. It is a murder that occurs in a university, and one of the new freshmen decides that she's going to take it upon herself to figure out who did the murder, since she was the one who finds the body. It is fast-paced. It is fun. It is easy to read. Characters are very interesting to read. You have your classic collection of characters. You have the characters that decide to try and play victim. You have the characters that are, completely entitled. You have the characters that are just super sweet and friendly. And you have just a fun group of characters to read here. I definitely enjoyed this book. I ended up giving this a 4 stars. I don't think it was quite a 5-star read for me, but I do think it was very, very enjoyable. I thoroughly enjoyed this book and would recommend to anybody who wants to read it. It's a great book for the fall, and it's just a really, really fun, lighter, dark academia if people want to get their toes wet in that genre. Then we read Divine Rivals. Now, this was the other question mark on my TBR list for August this month. I did end up biting the bullet and read Divine Rivals. It was beautiful. It was beautiful written. I can see why there was so much hype around this book. I think the the romance of the art of writing is so cute. I think the letters that binds the two characters together is so adorable. I think this war-strewn world that they're trying to find their way in is very well written. I think our female lead character, you get a lot of her story in this book. You also get a little bit of the male lead's character as well. He comes from privilege, she comes from poverty. You know, it's like, it's a very interesting storyline to read. It was also, I think, really beautiful, the connection between the two of them from their grandmothers as well. It's a lovely, lovely read. I think anyone who is on the fence about reading this, go ahead and dip your toes in. It's worth reading. It's so sweet. It's so cute. And you can't help but root for the two main characters. Pulls at your heartstrings, makes you feel all kinds of things. I really, really, truly loved this book. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. I really loved it. Made me cry, made me feel things. Do I think it's quite that 5-star read for me? No. But I do think it was very, very enjoyable, and I would recommend it to anyone who's looking to get into a light romantasy, easy to read, easy world to follow. But it's absolutely beautiful, and I think it's just interesting, this concept of the mundane, quote-unquote, humans getting caught in this world of the gods. To me, that kind of, I kind of related that to the idea of the universe having things planned out for us that we may not have any control over, and we just have to live through it, and all we can do is have faith and work hard and continue to be the best versions of ourselves and navigate life as it comes by. And that's kind of the vibes I got from this book. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a very heartwarming story. Really enjoyed it. Also think it's a lovely fall read. I definitely would recommend this for the fall, early fall, like probably like September timeframe, but definitely a beautiful read. Then I decided to tackle some Lucy Score books. As you can see, I have quite a few of her as well, and I really like her writing style. I really enjoyed Thread Up, is that what it's called? What is it called? Buy a Thread. I really enjoyed Buy a Thread. I haven't read the Nakamura series yet. I will plan on reading that. Nakamura? What is it? What is that series called? I have it right here. The Knock 'Em Out series. I will get to that next. But this is the Riley Thorne series. I have finished 2 of 4. It is basically cozy mystery. I loved the first one. I loved it. It made me giggle. It made me smile. It made me happy. I was so excited to come home, pick up this book, and read it. These were both 100% physical read books for me as well. I absolutely adored these books. The Dead Guy Next Door is basically exactly what it sounds like. Riley finds herself in a very messy situation after an ugly divorce. She's living with elderly, like truly elderly people. Like, I'm talking about 80-year-old roommates, and she's just a character. She's also a psychic, and just doesn't want to accept that she's a psychic. And she happens to have a vision that her next door neighbor is about to be murdered. Cue in PI Nick, who is our male lead, who basically is knocking on the doors, doing PI work because he was hired to track down said neighbor, and they both get tangled together in this book. I think the romance between them was amazing. I think the story was amazing. I think the cozy the cozy mystery vibes was 100% there. I think it was a great, great, great read. And I can see why people rave about Lucy Score if this is all of her writing. This was a hardcore 5-star read for me as well. I loved this book. I mean, to the point where my husband literally walked into the bedroom sometimes while I was reading or while I was sitting on my egg chair reading, and he would be like, "What are you laughing about? Like, what happened? Why are you like giggling and smiling?" So it was like truly a fun read for me. I really enjoyed it. I really loved it, and I would definitely recommend it to everyone. And the concept of this one is, basically what I said. It's 2 characters that got thrown together, basically trying to solve the murder of the next door neighbor, with a very, very cuckoo group of characters. And meanwhile, she also has a rando show up on her door basically saying, "I'm going to be your psychic guide, and we're going to work on your psychic abilities, and you need to open yourself to your psychic abilities because your grandmother said so." Her grandmother is also a medium who is very, very well respected in that community. And so it's just a lot of crazy going on in this book. The family is amazing. The neighbors are amazing. The stranger that shows up, whose name is Gabe, is absolutely like an adorable puppy dog vibe. And Riley and Nick's chemistry is tangible on the pages. It's just such a well-written book. Loved this book. Spicy. It is spicy. Then we have The Corpse in the Closet. This is the second book in the series. I also really enjoyed this book. This was more of a 4-star read for me, not quite that 5-star mark, but I did really enjoy it. I really enjoyed seeing Nick and Riley's relationship grow in this book. I loved the fact that she has to deal with her ex-husband. Those scenes are always funny. I love the fact that like you get a crackerjack group of characters that are just absolutely insane and entertaining in this book. Like, it was just so much fun. Would definitely recommend this series to anyone who's looking for just a fun, cozy mystery vibe. And I think going into the fall, this is exactly what I need. So, as I'm sure you already have guessed, when that TBR video comes up, do not be surprised when you see the last 2 books in this series on that TBR list. That, however, does wrap up what I've read this month. So those are all the books that I have read this month. Those are all 14 of the books that we got through this month. I hope that was fun for you guys to hear about, and that some of those books piqued your interest. If you have read any of the books before, please leave a comment below. I would love to know your thoughts, your ideas on them. If you feel like there is a book in this pile that you've read that you absolutely love, let me know. If there is a book that inspired you, let me know. If you feel like you know books that I would love based on the books that I just talked about today, and you think I should read them, please let me know. As we know, this is a community. That's the vibe we're trying to create. So please, please, please leave your comments below. I love reading them. I love getting into them. For those of you who are returning, thank you so much for coming and watching my videos. For those of you who are new, thank you so much for joining us today. If you did like the content of this video and you want to see more bookish vibes, there's a subscribe button as well as a playlist button. So feel free to peruse and definitely consider hitting that subscribe button and that notification bell. I put out videos every Wednesday and Sunday, and I look forward to catching you guys in the next one. Until next time, bye guys.